Okay, so I know that it's a Monday when I'm uploading this, and you probably looked at the title of the video and went, is it a Sunday? No, it's a Monday. But, I borrowed this book a while ago from one of my friends, and we had a little bit of a falling out since then, so I really need to give them their book back, but I really want to finish this on the channel, so I'll be attempting to do 2 chapters per audiobook to make this go faster, to make it down to 1 week instead of 2 weeks, but I only really have like 15 minutes allotted for each episode, so I'll be trying my very best. But this video should be 2 chapters, but you can look at the title and see if I was right. Okay, without further ado, this is chapter 26 of Book Lovers. 26. Libby and I walked to the fence line with celery, carrots, and sugar cubes, but even with our best baby talk, we can't coax the horses over. You think they know we're city people? I say. They can still smell dry bar all over you, she replies. I cup my hands around my mouth and shout out across the dusky pasture, "This isn't the end! We'll be back!" We hike back to the cottage, then decide we're too hungry to cook and instead trek into town destined for Papa Squat's loaded fries and cauliflower wings. On the whole walk, Libby's a little shaky. Beneath the street lamps, she's past the realm of peaked and into the territory of straight-up ghostly. Behind the glow of Good Book's windows, Charlie's closing up. "Let's invite him to dinner," she cries, unlatching herself from me and leading the charge across the street. Despite our early efforts at discretion, I'm positive she's noticed the vibe between us, but she's kept any disapproval to herself ever since Charlie helped with the surprise campout. She pounds on the shop door with the ferocity of an FBI agent on TV until Charlie reappears, looking exactly how he always looks. Tidy, overworked, well-dressed, and like he wants to bite my thigh. "We came to invite you to dinner," Libby pushes inside, beelining toward the bathroom, as she is wont to do these days, calling, "We're going to Papa Squat's." "Maybe you've heard of it," I say. "It was on a very exclusive BuzzFeed list." Slow nod. Dark, gut-melting eyes. Holding his gaze feels like public indecency. Places that sound like they'll definitely give you diarrhea, while really they only just might give you diarrhea. That's the one, I agree. He widens the door for me, but just then my phone rings. On instinct, I check it. Sharon's calling, while on maternity leave. I should take this. Libby does a cartoon screech to halt and turns back to me. "No work calls after 5, she reminds me. "This is different," I say, their ringing scritching against my nerves like fingernails on a chalkboard. "This might be important." Libby's lips fall into a straight line. "Nora, just give me a minute, Libby," I say. Her eyes go wide at the sharp edge to my voice. "I'm sorry, I have to do this." I take off down the dark block, heart thudding as I answer the call. "Sharon, is everything okay?" "Hi, yes," she says brightly. "Everything's fine. Sorry to worry you. I just had a question." The tension in my shoulders dissolves. "Sure, how can I help?" "I can't give too many concrete details," she starts, "but Logia might be hiring a new editor soon." "Oh?" The floor of my stomach sinks. I've gotten enough of these calls over the years to know where this is going. Sharon's leaving, or rather, not coming back from personal leave. "Yeah," she goes on. Looks that way. And hey, I know you're doing great at the agency, so this might not be interesting to you at all, but I've been talking with Charlie, and he says you're really helping get Dusty's book into shape." "He makes it easy," I say, "and she does too." "Of course," Sharon says, "but you've also always had a knack for this kind of thing. I guess I'm wondering if there's any chance you'd be interested." "Interested?" "In editing," she says, "for Logia." I must be sent into silence for longer than I realize because Sharon says, "Hello, did I lose you?" My mouth's gone dry. It comes out small. This must be how people feel when their water breaks. Like they've been carrying a new feature around inside them and suddenly it's gushing out, ready or not. "You want to be an editor?" You want me to be an editor. "I'd like you to interview," yes, she says, "but I totally understand if you're not interested. You've made a name for yourself as an agent, and you're great at it. This might not make sense for you." I open my mouth. No sound comes out. I'm stumped. "I don't need a concrete answer yet," she says, "but if you're at all interested, I expect to have to swim through the soup of my thoughts and feelings, to have to give a hacking cough or get out some words. Instead, I hear my voice as if through a tunnel. Yes. Yes, Sharon says, you'll meet with us? I squeeze the bridge of my nose as pressure rushes into my skull. This isn't the kind of decision you just make, least of all when your sister's in the middle of a potentially very expensive crisis. I'd like to think about it, I backtrack. Can I call you in a couple days? Of course, she says. Of course. This would be a big decision, but I'll admit, when Charlie said you might be interested, I was very excited. I barely hear the rest. My mind has become one of those FBI corkboards with zigzagging red string between every push pin it can find, trying to make things add up, to make all of it fit into one uninterrupted pattern. Proof that this can work, that I can have this, that it's not too good to be true. When I hang up, I sit on a bench beneath a street lamp, waiting for the days to fade. After 6 full minutes, I still feel like I'm inside a fishbowl, everything severely bent and destroyed around me. When I finally walk back, the bells over the shop door seem to chime from miles off, but Libby's voice is close and jarring. There you are, finally! With obvious annoyance, she adds, can we go to dinner now, or do you have a board meeting to get to? I feel brittle, stretched too far in too many directions, and when she rolls her eyes, something in me finally snaps. Can you not do that, Libby? Not right now. Do what? She says. You said you'd be fully present after 5 and... Stop! I lift a hand trying to hold off the fresh onslaught of red string and push pins raining down on me, reality crashing in from every direction. Because even if I want this job, I can't have it. Just like I couldn't last time. But at least then, Libby told me what she was going through. At least I wasn't throwing dots in the dark, hoping they'd plug up the holes of a sinking ship. What's going on with you? She demands, brows lifted, face torqued with dismay. An unstoppable wave rises through me. Me, I repeat. I'm not the one sneaking around, disappearing, not answering her husband's texts, keeping secrets. I've been fully present, Libby, all month, and you're still keeping me in the dark. My pulse feels erratic. My fingers tingle. I can't help it. I can't help if you don't tell me. I don't want your help, Nora. She pales at the thought, sways beneath her feet. I know I used to rely on you a lot, and I'm sorry for that, but I don't want to be another excuse for you not to have a life. Oh, right, I fume. I don't have a life. The only thing that matters to me is my career. Guess what, Libby? If that were true, I'd be an editor right now. I wouldn't have passed up on the job I actually wanted to make sure you could afford the best fucking doula in Manhattan. Her face is white now, her brow damp. Wait, you... Her breath is shallow. She turns, setting one palm on the counter. Her other hand rises to her forehead, eyes fluttering closed. She shakes her head, gathering herself. Libby? I take a half step toward her, my heart in my throat. That's when she collapses. Chapter 27. I catch her, but I'm not strong enough to hold her up. Help! I scream as we slump to the ground. The worst of her falls softened. The door to the office flings open, but I'm still shrieking help, screaming like it's doing anything, as if just shouting the word has power. Action over inaction. Movement over stagnation. An illusion of control. Charlie comes running, crouches beside us. What happened? I don't know. I say, Libby! Libby! Her eyes slit open, fluttered closed again. God, she's pale. Was she that pale all afternoon? And her heart is racing. I can feel it shivering through her. Her hands are icy. I take one between mine, rubbing it. Libby? Libby? Her eyes open again, and this time she looks more alert. Let's get her to the hospital, Charlie says. I'm okay, she insists, but her voice is shaky. She tries to sit up. I pull her back into my lap. Don't move, just take a second. She nods, settles into my arms. Charlie's on his feet already, headed for the door. I'll pull my car up. Charlie is the one who talks to the receptionist in complete sentences when we arrive. Charlie is the one who pulls me away when I start half shouting at the nurse who tells us we're not allowed to go through the doors Libby's ushered through. He's the one who pushes me into a chair in the waiting room, takes hold of my face, and promises it'll be okay. You can't know that, I think, but he's so sure that I almost believe him. Just sit right here, he says. I'll figure this out. 7 minutes later, he returns with decaf, a pre-packaged apple fritter, and the number of the room Libby's been moved into. They're running tests. It shouldn't take long. How did you do that? I ask, voice hoarse. I was on the high school paper with one of the doctors here, he says. She says we can go and wait in her hall until the tests are over. I never felt so useless or so grateful not to be in charge. Thank you, I croak. Charlie nudges the fritter toward me. You should eat something. He ferries me through the hospital, stopping by another vending machine for a bottle of water, then to a pair of hideously outdated chairs in a hellishly lit hallway that smells like antiseptic. She's in there. If they're not out in 5 minutes, I'll find someone to talk to, okay? He says gently. Just give them 5 minutes. Within 20 seconds, I'm pacing. My chest hurts. My eyes burn. But no tears come. Charlie grabs me, pulls me around his chest, and wraps a hand around the back of my head. I feel small, vulnerable, helpless in a way I haven't for years. Even before Mom died, I wasn't much of a crier. But when Libby and I were kids and I was upset, there was nothing that could make me tear up faster than having Mom's arms wrapped around me. Because then, and only then, I knew it was safe to come apart. My sweet girl, she'd coo. That's what she always called me. She never did the, you're okay, don't cry thing. Always, my sweet girl, let it out. At her funeral, I remember tears glossing my eyes, the pinprick sensation at the back of my nose, then beside me, the sound of Libby breaking, descending into sobs. I remember catching myself holding my breath like I was waiting, and then I realized I was waiting. For her. For Mom to put her arms around us. Libby was crumbling and Mom wasn't coming. It was like a collapsed sandcastle leapt back into place inside me, rearranging my heart into something passably sturdy. I wrapped my arms around my sister and tried to whisper, let it out. I couldn't get the words past my lips, so instead I dropped my mouth beside Libby's ear and whispered, hey. She gave a stuttering breath like, what? If Mom had known how hot the Reverend here is, I said, she probably would have made it down here sooner. Libby's saucer eyes looked up at me, glazed with tears, and my chest felt like a can being crushed until she let out a scratchy jolt of laughter, loud enough that hot Reverend stumbled over his next few words. She lay her head on my shoulder, turned her face into my jacket, and shook her head. That is so fucked up, she said, but she was shaking with teary laughter. For a second she was okay. Now, though, when she really needs me, I'm useless. Why couldn't we be in the room for tests? I get out. Charlie inhales, shifting between his feet. Maybe they think you'll give her the answers. There is absolutely no conviction in his joke. When I draw back, I realize he's not doing so hot himself. Are you okay? You look like you're going to be sick. Just don't like hospitals, he says. I'm fine. You don't have to stay. He takes my hands, holds them between our chests. I'm not leaving you here. I can handle it. His mouth shrinks, the crease between it deepening. I know. I want to be here. A group of nurses pass with a gurney, and an ashen cast steeps out onto Charlie's face. I scrouge around for something to say, anything else to think about. Sharon called me. His lips press into a knot. She told me you put me up for a job. After a beat, he murmurs, if I overstepped, I'm sorry. It's not that. My face prickles. It's just, what if I'm bad at it? His hands skim up my arms until he's cradling my jaw. Impossible. My brow arches of its own volition. Because I helped edit one book. He shakes his head. Because you're smart and intuitive. And good at getting the best writing out of people. And you put the work before your ego. You know when to push and when to let something go. You're trustworthy, partly because you're so bad at lying. And you take care of the things that matter to you. If I had to pick one person to be in my corner, it'd be you. Every time. You take care of shit. With a sharp throb in my chest, my gaze falls to the floor. Not always. Hey, Charlie's rough fingers come back to mine. He lifts my hand, brushing his mouth over my knuckles. We'll figure out what's wrong and do everything we can to fix it. That fucking list. My chest is too tight to let anything out but a whisper. She's been doing too much. I shouldn't have let her. We slept out in the heat, and we've been working on this fundraiser. She should have been resting. Charlie sits, drawing me into his lap, every thought of discretion, of avoiding complication gone in an instant. I need him, and he's here, I realize. Fully, not with caveats or stipulations. His hand slides up the back of my neck, tucked beneath my hair, and I'm wrapped up in him like he's my personal stone fortress. Like even if I came apart, nothing could get to me. Libby makes Libby's decisions, he says. Imagine how you'd react if someone tried to stop you from doing what you want, Steffens. A hint of a smile tugs at his pout. Actually, don't imagine it. It's inappropriate to get turned on in a hospital. I laugh weakly into his chest, another knot unwinding in my own. I miss something. I'm here with her, and Brendan isn't, and my voice catches. The rest tumbles out painfully. It's my job to watch out for her. I know it's scary being here, he says, but this is a good hospital. They know what they're doing. His fingers move in soothing, rhythmic circles against the nape of my neck. This is where my dad came. The word sweet guy seared through my mind like the after image left behind by the pop of a camera's bulb. That's what Charlie called his father, a sweet guy, the best person I know. What happened? I asked. After a protracted silence, he says, the first stroke wasn't bad, but this last one, he was in a coma for 6 days. He watches the progress of his thumb running back and forth over mine. His brow tightens. The day we met, I mistook this expression for surliness, brooding, proof he was as warm and human as a block of marble. Now all it does is bring out the lost look in his eyes. This huge, handy guy who can fix anything, build anything, and in that hospital bed he looked. He breaks off. I twine my free hand into the hair at the base of his neck. He looked old, Charlie says, then after a fraught silence. When I was a kid, all I ever wanted was to be like him, and I wasn't, but he always made me feel like it was okay to be the way I am. I cup his jaw and lift his gaze. I wonder if he can see every word in my expression because I feel them tunneling up from the lowest part of my gut. You're more than okay. He clears his throat. My dad's alive because of what they were able to do for him here. Between them and you, Libby's going to be all right. She has to be. As if on cue, the doctor, a balding man with a salmon Rashidi goatee and brow, walks out of the exam room. Is she okay? I lurch to my feet. She's resting, he says, but she gave me permission to speak with both of you. He nods toward Charlie, who stands, tightening his grip on my hand and graying me. What happened? I asked. In an instant, my mind circles through every ailment I know of. Heart attack, stroke, miscarriage, and then it snags. Pulmonary embolism. The words repeat, they echo, they reach back to the beginning of my life and forward to the end of it. This outstretched slinky of a phrase looping through time, fucking with everything, warping my life in places, ripping through it in others. Pulmonary embolism. The doctor says, your sister's anemic. The words slam into a wall, or maybe run off a cliff. That's how it feels, like I've stepped off a ledge and I'm hovering before the drop. Her body is lacking in iron and B12, he explains, so she's not manufacturing enough healthy red blood cells. It's not uncommon during pregnancy, and especially unsurprising for someone who's already dealt with this issue in a previous pregnancy. Libby hasn't had this before. He stays the clipboard in his hands. Well, it wasn't as severe, but her levels were definitely low. I spoke with her OBGYN, and apparently your sister was a bit more stable in her first trimester, but they've been keeping an eye on her since the beginning. My fingers are tingling again. My brain works to clear the smoke and start a checklist, but it's just not happening. What do we need to do? Charlie asks. It's pretty simple, the doctor says. She'll need to take an iron supplement and eat more meat and eggs if possible. She'll also want to do the same with B12. We'll get you a printout on the best resources for those, though I assume she'll remember from last time. Last time. This has already happened. I didn't just miss it once, but twice. She'll possibly have to deal with nausea, but having more smaller meals throughout the day should help. I'd like to see her next week to make sure she's doing better, and then after that, she'll need to have regular checkups with her doctor until delivery. That's manageable. It's fixable. Listable. Thank you. I shake my head. Thank you so much. My pleasure. He smiles a remarkably warm, patient smile. Just give her time to rest. The nurse will let you know when you can see her. As soon as he's gone, I feel exhausted, like a 1,000-pound weight just lifted off me, but only after hours of carrying it. You okay? When I look at Charlie, he's blurry. My vision is distorted. Breathe, Nora. He grips my shoulders, taking an exaggerated inhale. I match it. We stay in sync for a few breaths until the pressure releases. She's okay. I nod, let him pull me into his chest, wrapping me up tight against him. I tried to tell him I'm just relieved, but there's no room for words, for logic, reason, arguments. My body's decided what to do, and it's this, nothing, in Charlie's arms. He buries his mouth against my temple. I close my eyes, letting the waves of release crash over me. Gradually, they draw back, and I'm left floating, drifting in a current of Charlie, his faintly spiced scent, the heat of his skin, the fine wool of his light sweater. A picture of my apartment flickers across my mind. The yellowy red streetlights catching raindrops on my window pane, the sound of cars slushing past, the radiator hissing against my sock feet, the smell of old books and crisp new ones, and the cologne whose cedar wood and amber notes are meant to conjure up the image of sun-soaked libraries. The creak of old floorboards, the shuffle of footsteps, half-drunken singing as revelers make their way home from the tequila bar across the street, stopping for dollar slices of pizza dripping with oil. I can almost believe I'm there. in my home where it's safe enough to relax, to undo the brackets of steel in my spine and slip out my harsh outline, to settle. You're not useless, Charlie, I whisper against his steady heartbeat. His hand stills in my air. Organized? I smile into his chest. Something like that, I say. It'll come to me. At the creak of Livy's door, my eyes open. The nurse smiles. Your sister's ready for you.